Hello everyone, this is Gen Z Talks. The topic for today is applying for colleges. Now when it comes to colleges, there are many options. Four-year private, liberal art private, public schools, CSUs, UCs, branch campuses, and the list goes on and on. In fact, here's a map showing every single college in all the area of America. Now, the points for today is how to apply for the UCs, CSUs, and to find your own college. Using this map, of course. So when it comes to UCs, you're supposed to use a sign-in. If you don't have an account, then you create an account. And then from there, you apply for your UC schools, and then you pay for them. CSU, there's no essay needed, unlike the UCs. You select the term, you apply, choose the schools, and you're done. Now, when it comes to choosing your favorite type of college, there are many options to choose from. You could choose urban, rural, suburban. Keep in mind, suburban and urban mean two different things in California and across the country. In California, a suburb can go up to 200,000. Meanwhile, in the East Coast, 200,000 will be considered an urban. So now, let's go through how to choose your college. So this is the website I'm using, bigfuturecollegeboard.org. So this is the first thing you do. Let's say you are into choosing selective schools. You give 1, 2, 3 options. Now you have everything 75% and below. Now, evidently you want to choose your 4-year college since this is what it's about. You could choose private and public depending on what's your price. I recommend giving out large colleges since that's usually the average size, and evidently to have a co-ed school. Religious, I don't recommend you going to private Christian schools like TCU, Liberty University, and those types of schools, as it tends to hinder people who are not Christian and tends to hurt those who are either LGBT or minorities. So you got that out the way. Now time to choose your location. For sake of argument, let's go choose some East Coast schools. Mid-Atlantic, New England. Let's just put out some states as well, because we can. Maryland, New York, that's where you got. You can even apply international, but keep in mind the prices will be a lot higher. And then for campus, suburban, urban, rural. For arguments, let's just do suburban and urban. That way we can get everything for all the options. Then you choose your majors. Let's just say business. And we could go one more. Let's say STEM. We got 2 of those. Sports and activities usually doesn't matter for many people. This is up to you if you want to do that or not. Academic credit. Again, it doesn't really matter right now. You could choose what you want. Paying, additional programs, veterans counselors. Diversity, honestly, just choose a school where 70% of the race is not 70% of the race does not make up the majority of the school. Like for example, don't choose a school which is 70% white or 70% Asian. Choose a balanced school based on your likes. So now, with the options given of Mid-Atlantic, New England, Maryland, New York, urban or suburban, private and public, and STEM and business, we get these options. Boston University, City University, New York, City, Drexel, NYU, Northeastern, Penn State, Rowan, Rutgers, UBuffalo, some other New York schools, Temple, Maryland, Mass, and UPenn as of right now. Now, let's say you can't afford the private school. Unpress, and now you have these East Coast colleges. Add them to your list, and whether it be on paper or online, and then apply through the Coalition or Common App. Now, since we're talking about East Coast schools, schools like University of Maryland, Temple, Mass, Pitt, and Penn State have branch campuses. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about for branch campuses, think about it like this. If you want to apply for University of Washington, there's 3 campuses. UW Seattle, which is the main, and then the other 2 campuses, which are the branch. Like, for example, let's look at Penn State branch campuses. These are the branch campuses, and people tend to choose them based on their location, their price, their diversity. Honestly, if I have to tell you, do not choose a branch campus. It's not worth the money, it's not worth the time and effort. You might as well just go to the main campus. Because most of these branch campuses, whether they be in Pennsylvania, New York, Jersey, Maryland, Massachusetts, they all just tend to have commuters. And if you end up in the wrong spot, for example, a rural area, you won't get any people from the city. And if you're a city person like me, you won't really like that. So when it comes to applying, whether it be through Coalition or Common App, I recommend you, unless you're a commuter, please do not apply for these branch campuses. Again, they end up sucking your money and you leave with not as great of an experience. They're only good if you want really small classes or if you like to commute. Other than that, if you are an out-of-state or international student, branch campuses are not worth the money or the time. And now, if you don't like my options, you can look at the maps of colleges across the country and their dominance. Out west, you got Oregon, Washington, the CSU schools like San Jose and CSULB. You got private schools like USC, Arizona. You got Texas A&M, TCU. Oh, another thing. When you go out of state or wherever college you go to, you have to adapt to their culture, whether that be a college town culture out in the Midwest or the East Coast, whether it be a super private school like Liberty University, which tends to be very conservative, or a very redneck school like Texas A&M. You have to know what you're getting into. Please scope out the demographics. Please make sure you know evidently. Oh, please avoid the South. Do not apply to schools in the South unless it's Miami over here, UT Austin, or that's pretty much it. There's really nothing to work. Don't even try. The South is the worst location. These people that go to Southern schools tend to actually be from the North, especially the Northeast, and they tend to be very racist. So if you're a minority, I recommend you do not go to the Southern schools. So here are a few things to choose your school from: location, brand, academics, and clubs. See, the first thing you need is a good location. You're not going to choose a rural school in the middle of nowhere like an Idaho school. Like, come on now. You choose a school with a great location. Like, for example, UCLA, University of Washington. Speaking of locations, I'm sad to say this, but there aren't that many good locations in American universities. The best locations are UC Berkeley, California / Bay Area, UCLA / USC, UW Seattle, then you go over here, UT Austin, U Miami, and you go out east, Temple / UPenn / Drexel, which is in Philly, and NYU. Every other school's location is complete garbage. You're either in a college town or you're in the middle of nowhere. Trust me. Please pay attention to the location. You do not want to regret where you're going. I mean, if you're into the West Coast lifestyle, please do not choose the Midwest or the South, knowing that you would not survive. But yes, demographics is key. Do not apply to the branch campuses. And just keep in mind the brand, the location, how competitive it is, and if it has good clubs. Like, for example, a school like San Diego State, a CSU, California State University school. It has good brand, at least on the West, but it doesn't have nationwide brand. It's good for some majors, but not all. And it does not have good clubs. If you are into clubs, San Diego State's not for you. You have to see which can hit your target the most. You need to know which one can hit your acceptance rate, which one can hit your culture, your demographics, your major, your brand. Like, if you just want brand, just straight up go to an Arizona school. These locations are trash, living garbage. But they have brand, right? Isn't that what you want? You get to party in the desert and have fun, and you get a good brand name diploma. Or do you want to go with a brand school, which actually has a good location? Because people in Arizona, sadly to say this, but these people tend to either drive up to Las Vegas or drive out west to Los Angeles to have fun, because there's nothing to do in Arizona. The truth hurts. It's true. Like, it's also like, who the hell would want to go to Nebraska? Like, seriously? Ain't nobody trying to go to Nebraska. Same with Oklahoma. Unless you're like some racist person from the north, there's literally no reason. But another thing, prices. Please pay attention to the prices. Pay attention if you're in-state, out-of-state, which one do you want? Because price is key. Private schools like NYU with the best location, best brand, best majors. The problem is they can go up to $70,000 when you have to pay your yearly fee. You have to pay attention to the prices and be realistic. Be realistic on the location, the brand, your price. You don't want to overpay, but underpaying is fine, depending on how you look at it. Underpaying is in the sense if you go to a super cheap community college or you're a commuter at your local university. But please do not go to a school in the middle of nowhere. Please avoid the Christian schools, and for the love of God, please avoid the Midwest and the South. Yes, this leaves you with only 2 coasts, but to be fair, that's pretty much the only place you need to go to, especially if you're a minority. If you go down south to schools like Alabama, they literally have Confederate flags up in the frat party houses. You do not want to see that because it's not safe for you. You would not feel welcomed. Now back to the Midwest schools. The thing about them is that they're hit or miss. Yes, they can be good and all, but the issue with that is that most of them are in college towns. College towns in the sense that they are 2 to 3 hours away from a big city, and all you have is a college town. Great example, Illinois Urbana-Champaign. It's a college town in an extremely rural area. In fact, there's literal cornfields right next to the school. Okay, if you're into that stuff, that's on you. But I turned down the school due to that. Because I don't want to be in the middle of nowhere having to go look at cornfields every time I try to get out of school. Another thing, your school has to be based on where you want your job. Realistically speaking, yeah, at least today your location doesn't matter. But wouldn't you want your job opportunities to be where you want to be? For example, I want to go live in the Philadelphia metropolitan area. Therefore, I chose a school in Pennsylvania. That makes more sense. That way you can get in touch with the locals, the local firms, and their internships. Yes, it's still easy to do it by online, but would you rather be online or meet them face to face? It's much more recommendable to meet face to face. But back to the college town thing. College towns tend to be 2 to 3 hours away from any big city. An example, Penn State, 2 hours away from Pittsburgh, 3 hours away from Philadelphia. University of Maryland, 1 hour away from Baltimore/Annapolis. Another one, Amherst in Massachusetts. Amherst in Massachusetts is 2 hours away from Boston. So keep that in mind. So yes, if you are an urban person, unless you visited the school that you visited and you somehow happen to like it, just please avoid college towns unless you actually like the area. Because college towns, outside of that town, you're pretty much trapped in the center of the state. It's an East Coast thing, so you'll be trapped either in central PA, central Illinois, central Massachusetts, around a bunch of middle of nowhere areas. So keep that in mind. I personally recommend going to urban schools, but unless you're into college towns and that's your niche, go ahead. But for the love of God, do not apply to branch campuses. They're not worth your time. They're not worth your money. You end up paying the same or even more, depending on what school you go to, for a watered down education. There's not enough parties. Not all the clubs and services will be there, and there will be a lack of transportation at the branch campuses. And branch campuses, as stated before, tend to have too many commuters. So if you're an out-of-state or international person, you'll have a very hard time making friends. And if your branch campus is in a rural area, guess what? You're with a bunch of hicks. Whether that be in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Maryland, Indiana, who cares? You're stuck with a bunch of hicks if you're in a rural area and that's where your branch campus is. I'm straight up telling you, straight up avoid these branch campuses. It's a scam. Either you apply for the main campus or find another school. But back to what I was saying. This website is perfect when it comes to finding your perfect college. Over here, if I were to choose a college, I'd knock out the city schools, the Queens College, whatever these New York schools are, as New York doesn't really have that many good schools outside of their 2 Ivies and their NYU school. Penn State University Park, yeah, that seems good. Stony Brook, no. Buffalo, no. Rowan doesn't seem to be my type. Rutgers, I already know who goes there, so no. Temple is good, but only if you have certain major. Schools like Temple are for people in this case, Pennsylvania, who live in small, racist towns, who want to escape and go to the big cities, in this case, Philadelphia, to escape that, instead of going to a rural school or a commuter school. UMD, it has some branch campuses, you just straight up want to avoid that. Mass also has branch campuses, and UPitt, in this case, has branch campuses. But in my personal opinion, if we were out of all these colleges on this website right now, UMD is number one for me because it has all of the above. It has STEM, it has business, then would come Penn State. But the only problem is that it's a college town. But for me, I'm fine. Some other people cannot survive college towns. But University of Maryland, it's only an hour away from a big city like Annapolis or Baltimore. And it's really close to Washington, D.C. if that's your niche. So overall, you apply to CSUs using the CSU website. Very simple. Same with the UCs. Try to find schools that'll fit your niche, whether it's urban, suburban, rural, progressive, Christian, conservative. But if you're a minority, I recommend you do not apply to schools in the South unless it's UT Austin or a UT school or University of Miami, as most of these schools tend to have very racist people from the North, and they tend to be kind of unwelcoming, let's just put it that way. And keep your standards medium. If you get rejected by a main campus with a big branch school and instead get into a branch, don't try it. It's not worth the money. You might as well take your money somewhere else and get the correct experience. Get what you deserve. Don't get robbed from your experience that you wanted. But yeah, this website's really helpful. I wish I knew this, but turns out I knew it only this year. But overall, this is how to apply to colleges and to find your favorite type of college. And please visit these colleges. I know you can't do it right now due to COVID, but try to find ways to look at these colleges any way possible. Well, it's Gen Z Talks signing out.